The thunderous hooves of a pursuing posse faded into the distance, as Lucy Lawson clutched her threadbare shawl tighter around her shoulders, the chill of the October evening seeping into her bones. Blood trickled from the cut on her forehead as she stumbled deeper into the dense forest outside Tahlequah, Indian Territory, 1878. She hadn't eaten a proper meal in 3 days, not since she'd been forced to flee the only home she'd ever known with nothing but the clothes on her back and her father's tarnished pocket watch. Lucy's breath came in ragged gasps as she pushed forward through the underbrush. The light was fading fast, and with it, any hope of finding her way back to civilization, not that she had much waiting for her there. The accusations of theft had spread like wildfire through town after Mr. Holloway's prized silver collection went missing. Lucy had been the only servant in the house that day, and despite her tearful protestations of innocence, the wealthy merchant had been quick to point the finger. She knew exactly who had taken those silver pieces, Holloway's own son Thomas, who'd gambled away his monthly allowance and needed quick cash to pay his debts. But no one would take the word of a servant girl over that of the town's most prominent family. As darkness enveloped the forest, Lucy sank down against the broad trunk of an oak tree. Her stomach growled fiercely, a painful reminder that she hadn't eaten since morning. She closed her eyes, exhaustion overtaking her. Tomorrow she would figure out what to do next. The morning sunlight filtered through the trees, dappling the forest floor with golden patches of light. Lucy awoke with a start, disoriented for a moment before the memories of yesterday came rushing back. Her mouth felt like cotton, her stomach a hollow pit. She needed food and water. Rising to her feet, she brushed the dirt from her skirts and surveyed her surroundings. The forest stretched in every direction, a sea of autumn colors. In the distance, she could hear the faint trickle of running water. Following the sound, Lucy pushed through the underbrush until she came upon a small stream, its clear waters reflecting the morning light. Falling to her knees, she cupped her hands and drank greedily, the cold water soothing her parched throat. After quenching her thirst, she splashed water on her face, washing away the dried blood from the cut on her forehead. Her stomach growled again, a painful reminder of her predicament. Lucy glanced around, searching for anything edible. That's when she spotted them clusters of blackberries growing along the edge of the stream. They weren't perfectly ripe, many still showing hints of red, but they would have to do. She gathered as many as she could, popping the ripest ones into her mouth, savoring the burst of tart sweetness. It wasn't much, but it would keep her going for now. For 3 days, Lucy wandered the forest, surviving on berries, edible roots she recognized from her childhood when her father had taught her about forest foraging and the occasional handful of nuts. Each night, she found shelter beneath the canopy of trees, curling up in piles of leaves to ward off the chill. Each day, she walked, hoping to find her way out of the woods or perhaps stumble upon a hunting cabin or trapper's hut. But the forest seemed endless, and with each passing day, her strength waned. The berries and nuts weren't enough to sustain her for long, and she knew she needed to find substantial food soon. On the morning of the 4th day, as Lucy knelt by a different stream gathering more berries, a twig snapped behind her. She froze, her heart hammering against her ribs. Slowly she turned. 20 yards away stood a man. Tall and broad-shouldered, with a weathered face partially obscured by several days' growth of beard. He wore a dark Stetson pulled low over his eyes, a leather vest over a faded blue shirt, and dusty riding pants tucked into well-worn boots. A gun belt hung at his hip, the holster holding what appeared to be a Colt revolver. A cowboy. Lucy's first instinct was to run, but where would she go? She was lost, hungry and weakening by the hour. Besides, the man made no threatening moves. He simply stood there, regarding her with a mixture of surprise and what looked like relief. "Miss." His voice was deep but gentle, carrying through the clearing. "I mean you no harm." Lucy remained tense, her eyes darting around for escape routes. "Who are you? What do you want?" The man took a cautious step forward, then seemed to think better of it and stopped. "Name's Nathan Xavier. Most folks call me Nate." He removed his hat, revealing a shock of dark hair streaked with premature silver at the temples. "Been tracking you for days." "Tracking me?" Lucy's voice rose in panic. "Are you with the posse from Tahlequah? I didn't steal anything, I swear it." Confusion flickered across Nathan's face. "Posse? No, madam, I'm not with any posse." He paused, his brow furrowing. "You're Lucy Lawson, aren't you, from the Holloway household?" Lucy stiffened. "How do you know my name?" "Your employer's wife sent me to find you." Nathan replaced his hat, adjusting it slightly. "Mrs. Holloway doesn't believe you stole those silver pieces. Says her son came home drunk the night they went missing with more money than he should have had." Hope flickered in Lucy's chest, but she tamped it down. This could be a trick. "Mrs. Holloway sent you. Why should I believe that?" Nathan reached slowly into his vest pocket, telegraphing his movements so as not to alarm her. He withdrew a folded piece of paper. "She gave me this. Said you'd recognize her handwriting." Lucy hesitated, then slowly approached, taking the paper from his outstretched hand. The moment her fingers touched the note, she stumbled, her legs suddenly weak. Nathan moved with surprising speed for such a large man, catching her before she fell. "When's the last time you had a proper meal?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. 4 days ago," Lucy admitted, the fight draining out of her. She unfolded the note with trembling fingers, immediately recognizing the elegant penmanship of Alina Holloway. "Lucy, my dear girl. I know you are innocent. Nathan Xavier is a trusted friend of my brother's. Go with him. He will take you somewhere safe until I can clear your name." With affection, relief washed over Lucy in a dizzying wave. She looked up at Nathan, who was still supporting her with a gentle grip on her elbow. "She believes me," Lucy whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "Yes, madam, she does, and she's working on convincing her husband of the truth." Nathan's expression softened. "But first, we need to get some food in you and find somewhere safe for you to rest." Lucy nodded, suddenly aware of how close she was standing to this stranger. She took a step back, self-conscious of her disheveled appearance and the fact that she probably smelled as bad as she looked after days in the wilderness. "My camp isn't far," Nathan said, pointing westward. "Got coffee brewing and some beans and bacon. Not fancy, but it's hot." The mention of hot food made Lucy's mouth water. "Lead the way, Mr. Xavier." "Just Nate, please." He offered a small smile, the first she'd seen from him. It transformed his rugged features, softening the hard lines and bringing a warmth to his hazel eyes. Nathan's camp was indeed close by, nestled in a small clearing. A coffee pot sat nestled in the embers of a small fire, and the smell of bacon lingered in the air. His horse, a magnificent chestnut gelding, was grazing nearby, tethered to a tree. "Sit," Nathan said, gesturing to a fallen log he dragged near the fire. "Rest a spell while I fix you a plate." Lucy sank onto the log gratefully, watching as Nathan moved with practiced efficiency around the camp. He poured her a cup of coffee, added a spoonful of sugar without asking, and handed it to her. "Drink this first, slowly," he instructed. "Your stomach needs to remember what food is." The coffee was hot and sweet, and Lucy sipped it carefully, savoring the warmth that spread through her chest. Nathan busied himself preparing a plate of beans and bacon, his movements unhurried but purposeful. "Mrs. Holloway said you're a friend of her brother's," Lucy said after a moment. "I didn't know she had a brother." "Half-brother," Nathan corrected, handing her the plate. "Different fathers. James and I served together in the war, Confederate side." He paused, gauging her reaction. "Not something I'm proud of these days, but it was a different time." Lucy nodded, understanding. Many men had fought for the South without believing in the cause, especially here in Indian Territory where allegiances had been complex and divided. "How did you find me?" she asked between careful bites of the most delicious beans and bacon she'd ever tasted. "The forest is vast." Nathan settled across from her, nursing his own cup of coffee. "Tracking's what I do. Used to scout for the army after the war, then worked as a bounty hunter for a spell. Now I mostly track lost cattle for ranchers or guide hunting parties." He shrugged modestly. "Found your trail leaving town, followed it to where you entered the forest. After that, it was just a matter of time." 4 days of time, Lucy noted. "You covered a lot of ground for someone on foot with no supplies," Nathan said, a note of admiration in his voice. "And you did a fair job of covering your tracks in places, made me work for it." "My father taught me a few things before he passed," Lucy explained. "He was a trapper before settling in Tahlequah. He taught you well." Nathan refilled her coffee cup. "If you're feeling up to it after eating, we should move on. I've got a cabin about half a day's ride from here. You'll be safe there until Mrs. Holloway sends word." Lucy set down her empty plate, feeling human again for the first time in days. "Thank you, Mr. Xavier Nate. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't found me. You were doing just fine surviving on berries and roots," he said with that small smile again. "But I reckon having a roof over your head and regular meals won't hurt." An hour later, they were riding through the forest, Lucy seated in front of Nathan on his gelding. At first, she'd been uncomfortable with the arrangement, acutely aware of his chest pressed against her back, his arms on either side of her holding the reins. But as the hours passed, exhaustion overtook her, and she found herself leaning back against him, grateful for the support. Nathan kept up a steady stream of quiet conversation, pointing out landmarks and sharing brief stories about his time in the territory. His deep voice rumbled against her back, oddly comforting. "There it is," he said finally, as they crested a small ridge in the late afternoon. Below them, nestled in a clearing by a stream, stood a modest but well-built log cabin. Smoke curled from the stone chimney and a small corral stood empty beside it. "Someone's there," Lucy said, tensing. "That'll be Jeremiah," Nathan explained, urging the horse forward. "Old army friend, stops by to check on the place when I'm away, keep the fire going. Good man, quiet but good." As they approached the cabin, the door swung open and an older man with a full white beard stepped out. He raised a hand in greeting, his weathered face breaking into a smile. "Nate, found her, did you?" Jeremiah called. "Told you I would," Nathan replied, bringing the horse to a stop. He dismounted first, then reached up to help Lucy down. Her legs nearly buckled when her feet touched the ground, stiff from the long ride. "Lucy Lawson, meet Jeremiah Cooper," Nathan said, steadying her with a hand on her elbow. "Pleasure, miss," Jeremiah said with a slight bow of his head. "Got stew simmering and fresh bread cooling. Figured you might be hungry after your ordeal." "Thank you," Lucy said, suddenly overwhelmed by the kindness of these strangers. "You're very kind." "Least we can do," Jeremiah replied. "Any friend of Mrs. Holloway is a friend of ours." He turned to Nathan. "Brought your spare clothes from town like you asked in your note, left them in the trunk by the bed." "Appreciate it, Nathan said. "Well, I'll be heading back to town now you're here," Jeremiah said, moving toward a dappled gray horse tethered nearby. "Got a letter from Mrs. Holloway saying you found the girl safe. Anything else you want me to tell her?" Nathan glanced at Lucy. "Tell her we'll stay put until we hear from her, and thank her again for the advance payment." Lucy started at this. "She paid you to find me." "Course she did," Nathan said matter-of-factly. "It's my livelihood." Something cold settled in Lucy's stomach. Of course, this wasn't about kindness or doing what was right. Nathan Xavier was being paid to track her down and keep her safe. It was just a job to him. "I see," she said stiffly. Nathan gave her a curious look but didn't comment. Instead, he helped Jeremiah saddle up, the two men exchanging a few quiet words before the older man rode off with a final wave. "Come on," Nathan said, turning back to Lucy. "Let's get you settled in. You look dead on your feet." The cabin was simple but comfortable, with a main room that served as kitchen and living area and a small bedroom partitioned off by a curtain. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, the fire within casting a warm glow throughout the space. A rough-hewn table with 2 chairs sat in the center, and a rocking chair was positioned near the fire. "It's not much," Nathan said, sounding almost apologetic, "but it's warm and dry." "It's lovely," Lucy said honestly. After days in the forest, the cabin seemed like a palace. Jeremiah left some clothes for you, Nathan continued, gesturing toward the bedroom area. Probably won't fit perfect, but they'll be cleaner than what you're wearing. There's a wash basin behind the screen in the corner if you want to freshen up. I'll dish up some stew. Lucy nodded gratefully and slipped behind the curtain to the bedroom. A simple bed with a patchwork quilt took up most of the space, with a small chest at its foot. Inside the chest, she found several items of clothing. A man's shirt that would hang like a dress on her, a pair of trousers that would need to be belted and rolled up, and surprisingly, a simple calico dress that looked to be about her size, if a bit large. She opted for the dress, then moved to the washstand in the corner. The cool water felt heavenly against her skin as she washed away days of grime and fear. There was even a small bit of soap, smelling faintly of pine, and a comb for her tangled hair. By the time Lucy emerged, feeling more human than she had in days, Nathan had set the table with 2 bowls of steaming stew and slices of fresh bread. He looked up when she appeared, his eyes widening slightly. That was Jeremiah's late wife's dress, he explained, looking somewhat embarrassed. Kept a few of her things, hope you don't mind. Not at all, Lucy said, smoothing down the front of the simple garment. It's very kind of him to lend it to me. Nathan nodded, pulling out a chair for her. Sit, eat. The stew was hearty, filled with venison, potatoes, and wild onions. Lucy forced herself to eat slowly, savoring each bite. Nathan ate in silence across from her, occasionally glancing up to ensure she was eating. How long will we stay here? Lucy asked finally. Nathan set down his spoon. Until Mrs. Holloway sends word that it's safe for you to return to Tahlequah. Or until she arranges passage for you somewhere else if that's what's needed. He paused. Could be days, could be weeks. Weeks alone in this cabin with a man she barely knew. A man who was only helping her because he was being paid to do so. The thought made Lucy's stomach tighten. I'm grateful for your help, she said carefully. But I don't want to impose on you for weeks. Perhaps I could make my own way once I've regained my strength. Nathan's expression hardened. Mrs. Holloway hired me to keep you safe, and that's what I intend to do. Running off on your own would accomplish nothing except putting you in danger again. I'm not your prisoner, Mr. Xavier, Lucy said, bristling at his tone. No, you're not, he agreed, his voice softening. You're free to leave whenever you choose, but I'm asking you to stay for your own safety and so I can fulfill my promise to Mrs. Holloway. Lucy sighed, knowing he was right. She had nowhere to go, no money, no resources. I'll stay, she conceded. For now, good. Nathan stood, gathering their empty bowls. You take the bed, I'll sleep out here by the fire. I couldn't possibly take your bed, Lucy protested. It's not up for debate, Nathan said firmly. You've spent days sleeping on the forest floor, you need proper rest. His expression softened again. I've slept in far worse places than my own cabin floor, trust me. Too tired to argue further, Lucy nodded. Thank you for everything. Nathan just nodded, turning away to wash the dishes in a basin of water. Lucy watched him for a moment, this strange, taciturn man who had tracked her through miles of wilderness only to offer her shelter and kindness, payment or no. Good night, then, she said softly, retreating to the bedroom area. Good night, Miss Lawson, came his quiet reply. The next morning, Lucy awoke to the smell of coffee and bacon. For a disoriented moment, she thought she was back in her small room at the Holloway house, before the memories of the past days came rushing back. She sat up, running her fingers through her tangled hair before pulling it back with a ribbon she'd found in the chest with the clothes. When she emerged from behind the curtain, Nathan was at the stove, his back to her. He'd obviously been up for some time. The cabin was warm, and besides the breakfast he was preparing, she could see he'd brought in more firewood and fresh water. Morning, he said without turning around. Sleep well, better than I have in days, Lucy admitted. Can I help with anything? All done, Nathan replied, turning with 2 plates of bacon and biscuits. Hope you're hungry. Lucy's stomach growled in response, making Nathan chuckle. It was the first time she'd heard him laugh, and the sound transformed his face, erasing years of hardship and worry. Lucy found herself staring, struck by how handsome he was when he wasn't scowling or looking stern. They ate in companionable silence, Lucy marveling at how comfortable it felt despite the strange circumstances. After breakfast, she insisted on washing the dishes while Nathan went out to tend to his horse. When he returned, he was carrying a rabbit he'd apparently snared earlier that morning. "Thought we could have this for supper," he said, setting it down on a small table near the door. "Need to clean it first, though." "I can do that," Lucy offered. When Nathan looked surprised, she added, "My father taught me before he passed." Nathan hesitated, then nodded. "All right, tools are in that drawer," he gestured to a small cabinet. "I'll go chop some more wood." Lucy set to work skinning and cleaning the rabbit, grateful for the task. It kept her hands busy and her mind occupied, preventing her from dwelling too much on her uncertain future. By the time Nathan returned with an armload of split logs, she had the rabbit quartered and ready for cooking. "You did a fine job with that," Nathan said, sounding genuinely impressed as he stacked the wood by the fireplace. "Thank you," Lucy said, feeling oddly pleased by his approval. "I can prepare it for stew if you like." "That would be mighty nice," Nathan agreed. They fell into an easy routine over the next few days. Nathan would rise early, tend to outside chores, and often bring back small game for their meals. Lucy kept the cabin tidy, prepared food, and mended a few of Nathan's shirts that she found needed attention. They talked little, but the silence between them gradually shifted from awkward to comfortable. On the fourth day at the cabin, rain set in a steady, cold autumn downpour that kept them confined indoors. Nathan pulled a worn deck of cards from a shelf and taught Lucy how to play poker, using dried beans as betting chips. "You've got a good face for cards," he commented after she'd won her third hand in a row. "Can't read you at all." "Years of service taught me to hide my thoughts," Lucy replied, shuffling the deck. "Especially around the young master of the house." Nathan's expression darkened. "Thomas Holloway. Mrs. Holloway mentioned him in her letter, said he's been trouble since he returned from school back east." "That's putting it mildly," Lucy said, dealing the next hand. "He drinks too much, gambles away his allowance, then expects his parents to bail him out. When they finally refused, he started stealing small valuables to sell in Muskogee." "And blamed you when he got caught," Nathan finished, picking up his cards. "Not even caught, really," Lucy corrected. "Just suspected. Mr. Holloway noticed his silver collection was missing, and Thomas suggested I was the only one who could have taken it. It was convenient timing. I'd refused Thomas's advances the night before." Nathan's head snapped up, his eyes flashing with sudden anger. "Did he hurt you?" "No," Lucy assured him quickly. "Mrs. Holloway intervened before he could do more than grab my arm, but he was angry. Said he'd make me regret it." She stared down at her cards without seeing them. "I guess he did." Nathan set his cards down, his jaw tight. "Men like that deserve a reckoning." "Perhaps," Lucy said softly, "but it doesn't matter now. I can never go back to Tahlequah, not really. Even if my name is cleared, the whispers will follow me. No respectable household will hire me." "What will you do?" Nathan asked. Lucy shrugged, trying to appear more nonchalant than she felt. "Mrs. Holloway has a cousin in Kansas City. Perhaps she can help me find a position there." Nathan nodded, but something in his expression had changed. He seemed troubled, his brow furrowed as he picked up his cards again. "Your bet," he said gruffly. The rain continued through the night and into the next day. By afternoon, Lucy was feeling restless, confined by the small cabin. Despite the drizzle, she wrapped herself in a shawl Jeremiah had brought along with the dress and stepped out onto the small covered porch. The forest was transformed by the rain, the autumn colors more vibrant against the gray sky. Lucy drew in a deep breath of the damp, earthy air, feeling some of her tension ease. She sat on a small bench, content to watch the rain and listen to the drumming sound it made on the cabin roof. The door opened behind her, and Nathan stepped out, carrying 2 steaming cups. "Thought you might like some coffee," he said, handing her one before settling beside her on the bench. "Thank you," Lucy said, cradling the cup for warmth. "It's beautiful out here, even in the rain." Nathan nodded, gazing out at the forest. "It's why I built in this spot. Reminds me there's still beauty in the world, even after everything." Lucy glanced at him. "The war. That, and other things." Nathan took a sip of his coffee. "Lost my wife and daughter to fever in '73, came out here afterward, couldn't bear to be around people much." Lucy's heart constricted at the pain evident in his voice. "I'm so sorry, Nate," he shrugged, still staring out at the rain. "It was a long time ago." "Not so long," Lucy said softly. "I lost my father 3 years ago. Some days it feels like yesterday." Nathan turned to look at her, really look at her, perhaps for the first time. "What happened?" "Pneumonia," Lucy replied. "He was a strong man, but the winter was harsh and we couldn't afford a doctor until it was too late." She paused, the memory still painful. "I took the position with the Holloways to pay off his medical debts. Been there ever since." They sat in silence for a while, both lost in memories. When Lucy shivered as the air grew cooler, Nathan stood, should head back in, getting colder. The cabin seemed smaller somehow when they re-entered, more intimate. Nathan busied himself building up the fire while Lucy prepared a simple supper from the remains of yesterday's rabbit and some dried vegetables she'd found in Nathan's stores. They ate by firelight, the rain's patter on the roof creating a cozy backdrop to their meal. Afterward, instead of cards, Nathan pulled a book from a shelf, a well-worn copy of The Last of the Mohicans. "Do you read?" he asked, almost shyly. "Yes," Lucy said. "I was fortunate. My father believed girls should be educated, taught me himself." Nathan looked relieved. "Would you mind reading aloud? My eyes get tired in this light." Lucy suspected he was being kind, offering her a way to pass the evening that might bring her comfort, but she accepted the book gratefully. She began to read, her voice growing more confident as the story unfolded. Nathan sat in the rocking chair, his eyes closed, listening intently. After an hour, Lucy's voice began to grow hoarse. She paused, marking their place in the book. "You read beautifully," Nathan said, opening his eyes. "Thank you. It's nice to have someone to read to," Lucy admitted. "I used to read to my father in the evenings." "My Catherine did the same," Nathan said quietly. "My wife, she loved books, wanted our daughter to love them too." "What was your daughter's name?" Lucy asked gently. "Sarah," Nathan replied, a sad smile touching his lips. "She was 4 when they died, full of life, always asking questions, wanting to know how things worked." He fell silent, lost in memories. Lucy waited, sensing he needed to speak but wouldn't be rushed. "I wasn't there," he finally continued. "Was on a hunting trip with some men from town, came back to find them both gone. Neighbors said the fever took them quick." His voice roughened. "Should have been there." "You couldn't have known," Lucy said softly. "You can't blame yourself." "Can't I?" Nathan's eyes met hers, filled with old pain. "I was her father. I was supposed to protect her, protect them both." Without thinking, Lucy moved to kneel beside his chair, taking his rough hand in hers. "Some things can't be prevented, Nate, no matter how much we wish otherwise." Nathan stared down at their joined hands, then slowly, tentatively, turned his palm to clasp hers. 5 years, he murmured. 5 years, and it still feels like yesterday." They stayed like that for a long moment, connected by shared grief and understanding. When Lucy finally rose to retire for the night, Nathan caught her hand again. "Thank you," he said simply. Lucy smiled gently. "Good night, Nate." "Good night, Lucy." The rain cleared overnight, and morning brought watery sunshine filtering through the trees. Lucy awoke to find the cabin empty, though the coffee pot was warm on the stove. A note sat on the table in Nathan's rough handwriting. "Gone hunting. Back by noon." Lucy used the opportunity to wash her hair in a basin of rainwater she'd collected from a barrel outside. She'd just finished combing it out to dry by the fire when Nathan returned, a brace of squirrels in one hand and a small sack in the other. "Morning," he said, hanging his hat by the door. "Brought breakfast." He held up the sack. "What is it?" Lucy asked, curious. Wild blackberries, Nathan replied with a small smile, reminded me of how I found you. Lucy felt a strange fluttering in her chest at the thoughtfulness of the gesture. Thank you, that's very kind. Not kindness, Nathan said, setting the berries on the table. Just thought you might like something sweet for a change. They ate the berries with the last of the biscuits, the tart sweet juice staining their fingers. Nathan seemed more relaxed than Lucy had seen him, even occasionally smiling at her comments. Thought we might ride into the nearest town today, he said as they finished eating. Need supplies if we're going to be here much longer, and I should check if there's any word from Mrs. Holloway. Town, Lucy tensed. Is it safe? Greenleaf's small, not much more than a trading post and a few cabins, Nathan assured her. And it's a fair distance from Tahlequah, no one will know you there. Still, Lucy felt uneasy. What if someone recognizes me? They won't, Nathan said confidently. And if anyone asks, you're my sister visiting from Kansas City. Lucy nodded, still uncertain but trusting Nathan's judgment. When do we leave? Hour or so, Nathan replied, standing to clean his plate. Take your time getting ready. The ride to Greenleaf took most of the morning. Lucy sat behind Nathan this time, her arms wrapped loosely around his waist for balance. The forest gradually gave way to scattered farmsteads, and finally, they crested a hill to see a small collection of buildings nestled in a valley below. Greenleaf was indeed tiny, a general store, a smithy, a small church, and a handful of cabins. A few horses were hitched outside the store, and children played in the dusty street. Nathan helped Lucy dismount when they reached the store, his hands lingering briefly at her waist. Stay close, he murmured. Shouldn't be any trouble, but just in case. Inside, the store was dim and cluttered, smelling of coffee, tobacco, and leather. An older man with spectacles greeted Nathan warmly. Xavier, been a while, thought you might have moved on. Still here, Miller, Nathan replied, shaking the man's hand. Just been busy. This is my sister, Miss Lucy, visiting from Kansas City. Miller nodded politely to Lucy. Welcome to Greenleaf, miss. Not much to see, but what we have is yours to enjoy. Thank you, Lucy replied with a small curtsy, falling easily into the role of a city visitor. While Nathan discussed supplies with Miller, Lucy wandered the store, examining the shelves of goods. It wasn't as well stocked as the mercantile in Tahlequah, but it had the essentials: flour, sugar, coffee, ammunition, simple tools, and a small selection of fabric and ready-made clothing. She paused at a display of hair ribbons, fingering a blue one that matched the borrowed dress she wore. It had been years since she'd had anything new or pretty for herself, her meager wages always going toward her father's debts. You should get it, Nathan said, appearing beside her. Blue suits you. Lucy dropped her hand, embarrassed to be caught looking. Oh, I couldn't, I have no money. Consider it part of your wages, Nathan said, reaching past her to take the ribbon. For cooking and keeping the cabin tidy. Before Lucy could protest, he'd added it to his pile of supplies on the counter. Miller raised an eyebrow but said nothing as he tallied the purchases. Any mail for me, Miller? Nathan asked as he paid. Matter of fact, there is. Miller reached beneath the counter and produced a letter. Came 2 days ago. Nathan took the envelope, examining the handwriting. It's from Mrs. Holloway, he said quietly to Lucy. He tucked it into his vest pocket. We'll read it when we get back. After loading the supplies into saddlebags, Nathan suggested they eat at the small tavern attached to the smithy before heading back. Food simple but good, he explained. And we could both use a hot meal we didn't have to cook ourselves. The tavern was nearly empty at midday, with only the blacksmith himself enjoying a late breakfast at one table. Nathan led Lucy to a corner table, positioning himself so he could see both the door and the windows. A matronly woman brought them bowls of thick stew and slices of fresh bread. Good to see you, Nate, she said warmly, and with company no less. She winked at Lucy. He keeps to himself, this one. Good to see him socializing for a change. Hannah, Nathan warned, though without real heat. Hush, you, Hannah replied good-naturedly. Let me enjoy the sight of you with a pretty woman for once. She patted Lucy's shoulder. You eat up now, dear, too thin by half, both of you. When Hannah had bustled away, Lucy found herself smiling. She seems fond of you. Hannah's got a soft spot for strays, Nathan said, breaking off a piece of bread. Her husband Jim, the blacksmith, found me in pretty rough shape a few months after I came to the territory. They helped me get back on my feet. Lucy watched him as he ate, thinking about how little she really knew about this man who had upended her life so completely. You have good friends here. Nathan nodded, his expression thoughtful. Took me a while to accept their friendship. After Catherine and Sarah died, I wanted nothing to do with people. Thought it would be easier to be alone. He met her eyes. It wasn't. And now, Lucy asked softly, now I know a man needs connections, even if they bring pain sometimes. He paused. Tracking you through that forest, I realized I'd been given a purpose again, something beyond just surviving day to day. Lucy's heart beat faster at his words, at the intensity in his gaze. I'm glad, she said simply, unsure how else to respond. The moment was broken by Hannah returning with coffee. Pie's fresh today, she announced. Apple, want a slice? Too, Nathan confirmed with a smile. Lucy's got a sweet tooth. How did you know that? Lucy asked after Hannah left. Watched how you picked the ripest berries first, Nathan said, and you always take an extra spoonful of sugar in your coffee. Lucy felt her cheeks warm at the realization he'd been paying such close attention to her habits. You're observant. Have to be in my line of work, Nathan replied. But his eyes held something warmer than professional interest as they lingered on her face. The pie was indeed delicious, and Lucy savored every bite, aware of Nathan watching her with quiet amusement. When they'd finished, he paid Hannah generously, accepting her invitation to bring your sister back soon with a noncommittal nod. Outside, the afternoon sun had warmed the autumn air, and Lucy turned her face up to it gratefully. It's a lovely day. Too nice to rush back, Nathan agreed. Thought we might take the long way home if you're not too tired. The word home sent an unexpected warmth through Lucy's chest. It had been so long since she'd had a real home, somewhere she felt safe and wanted. The cabin in the woods with Nathan was beginning to feel that way, though she knew their arrangement was temporary. I'd like that, she said. They rode at a leisurely pace, Nathan pointing out landmarks and sharing stories about the area. As they passed a meadow filled with wildflowers, he suddenly reined in the horse. Let's stop a while, he suggested. Horse could use the rest and the view's pretty from here. They dismounted, and Nathan spread a blanket from his saddlebag on the grass. Lucy sat, arranging her skirts carefully, while Nathan tethered the horse where it could graze. When he joined her, he pulled the letter from his vest. Should probably read this. Lucy nodded, her stomach knotting with anxiety. This letter would determine her future, whether she could return to Tahlequah or would need to flee further. Nathan broke the seal and unfolded the paper, his eyes scanning the neat handwriting. His expression gave nothing away as he read. What does it say? Lucy asked when the silence became unbearable. Nathan handed her the letter. See for yourself. Lucy took the paper with trembling fingers and began to read. Dear Mr. Xavier, I trust this letter finds you and Miss Lawson well. I wanted to inform you that there have been developments in the situation here in Tahlequah. My son Thomas, confronted with evidence of his involvement in the theft, has confessed to taking the silver. My husband has withdrawn all charges against Miss Lawson, and her name has been cleared. However, I fear the gossip surrounding her departure will make it difficult for her to return to her position, or indeed to any position in Tahlequah. People are quick to believe accusations and slow to accept their falsehood. I have written to my cousin in Kansas City, who is willing to help Miss Lawson find a suitable position there, should she wish it. Enclosed is money for her passage and to compensate her for the injustice she has suffered. There is no rush to decide. You may continue to provide shelter for Miss Lawson as long as necessary, and I will cover any additional expenses incurred. Please convey to her my deepest apologies for my family's role in her troubles, and my sincere wish for her future happiness. With gratitude for your assistance, Eleanor Holloway. Lucy looked up from the letter, conflicting emotions washing over her. Relief that her name had been cleared mingled with uncertainty about her future. Kansas City was far away, a place she'd never been, where she knew no one except Mrs. Holloway's cousin. So, Nathan said carefully, you're free to go where you please. Lucy folded the letter slowly. Yes, it seems so. Kansas City's a fine place, they say, Nathan continued, his voice oddly flat. Lots of opportunities for a young woman with skills like yours. Yes, Lucy agreed, though her heart wasn't in the words. I'm sure it is. They sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of the decision hanging between them. When will you want to leave? Nathan finally asked. Lucy looked up at him, startled by the question. I don't know. I hadn't thought. No rush, Nathan interrupted, looking away across the meadow. Like Mrs. Holloway said, you can stay as long as you need to make arrangements. He paused. Might be wise to wait until spring, actually. Winter travel can be treacherous. Spring, Lucy repeated. That was months away. I couldn't impose on you for so long. It's no imposition, Nathan said quietly. Truth is, I've grown used to having you around. The cabin feels different with you there. The admission hung in the air between them, simple but profound. Lucy's heart beat faster as she considered his words and the meaning behind them. Different how? She asked softly. Nathan met her eyes then, and what she saw there made her breath catch. Warmer, he said. More like a home than just a place to sleep. He hesitated, then added, I'd forgotten what that felt like. Lucy's throat tightened with emotion. I know what you mean, she whispered. I've felt it too. Nathan's hand moved to cover hers on the blanket, his touch gentle but sure. Stay through the winter, Lucy. No obligations, no expectations, just stay. Lucy looked down at their joined hands, then back up at his face, so open and vulnerable in that moment. She thought of the cabin in the woods, of quiet evenings by the fire, of the peace she'd found there after days of fear and uncertainty. All right, she said softly, I'll stay until spring. The relief that washed over Nathan's face was almost painful to see. He squeezed her hand gently, his thumb tracing small circles on her skin. Thank you, he said simply. They sat together as the afternoon light began to fade, hands still joined, watching as the setting sun painted the meadow in shades of gold and amber. Neither spoke, but in the silence, something new and fragile began to take root between them, something that felt remarkably like hope. The weeks that followed took on a rhythm of their own. Nathan taught Lucy to shoot his spare revolver, standing behind her to adjust her stance, his breath warm on her neck as he murmured instructions. Lucy taught Nathan to make her father's venison stew, laughing as he struggled to chop the vegetables fine enough for her liking. They rode to Greenleaf once a week for supplies and news, their story of brother and sister visiting gradually shifting to something less defined, but accepted nonetheless. Hannah at the tavern would wink knowingly at Lucy when Nathan wasn't looking, and Miller at the store began setting aside books he thought Lucy might enjoy. As October gave way to November, they prepared the cabin for winter. Nathan reinforced the walls with fresh chinking, while Lucy made candles from tallow and dried herbs and vegetables for storage. They worked side by side, their movements increasingly in sync, anticipating each other's needs without words. The first snow fell in late November, transforming the forest into a wonderland of white. Lucy stood on the porch wrapped in a shawl, marveling at the beauty of it when Nathan joined her. Never seen snow like this, she admitted. In town, it gets dirty so quickly. Out here it stays pretty, Nathan agreed, his breath forming clouds in the cold air. Sarah used to love it, would wake me at dawn when it snowed, begging to go outside and play. Lucy smiled at the memory. Nathan spoke of his daughter more often now, sharing happy recollections instead of just grief. It was a healing she was grateful to witness. Did you build snowmen? She asked. Whole families of them, Nathan replied with a chuckle. Catherine would bring out her old scarves and hats for them, and Sarah insisted they all needed stick arms to hug each other. "She sounds wonderful," Lucy said softly. "Both of them do." Nathan nodded, his expression wistful but no longer haunted. They were. He paused, then added quietly, "Catherine would have liked you." Lucy's heart swelled at the simple statement. "I would have liked to know her." Nathan turned to her then, his eyes serious. "Can I show you something?" "Of course." He disappeared into the cabin, returning a moment later with a small wooden box Lucy had never seen before. He opened it carefully and withdrew a daguerreotype in a simple frame. "My family," he said, handing it to her. Lucy took the image reverently. A younger Nathan stood proudly behind a seated woman with a gentle smile and kind eyes. On her lap was a little girl, no more than 3 or 4, with her father's hazel eyes and her mother's delicate features. "They're beautiful," Lucy said, her throat tight with emotion at the trust Nathan was showing her. "Yes," Nathan agreed simply. "They were." Lucy handed the image back, but Nathan shook his head. "Keep it out. It should be seen, not hidden away." He paused. "I've kept them locked away too long." "In here," he tapped his chest, "as well as in that box." Lucy understood the significance of the gesture. Nathan was making room in his life, in his heart, for something new while still honoring what had come before. "I'll put it on the mantel," she said, accepting the frame again. That evening, as they sat by the fire after supper, Lucy reading aloud from one of the books Miller had set aside for her, she felt Nathan's gaze on her face. She paused, looking up questioningly. "What is it?" she asked. "Just thinking," Nathan replied. "About how different things are from when I found you in the forest." Lucy smiled, setting down the book. "I was surviving on berries and hope." "You were surviving," Nathan agreed, "but I think I was the one who was truly lost." He met her eyes, his own filled with an emotion she'd seen growing over the past weeks but had been afraid to name. "You helped me find my way back, Lucy." Lucy's heart raced as Nathan moved from his chair to sit beside her on the small sofa. "I didn't do anything special," she whispered. "You did," he insisted, taking her hand in his. "You brought life back into this cabin, into me." His voice roughened. "I never expected to feel this way again." "What way?" Lucy asked, though she knew had known for weeks if she was honest with herself. Instead of answering with words, Nathan leaned forward slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. When she didn't, he brushed his lips against hers in a kiss so gentle it brought tears to her eyes. "That way," he murmured as he pulled back slightly. Lucy raised a trembling hand to his cheek. "I feel it too," she admitted, "but I'm afraid." "Of what?" Nathan asked, covering her hand with his own. "Of building something that can't last," Lucy said, voicing the fear that had been growing alongside her feelings. "Spring will come and I'll have to go to Kansas City." "You don't have to go anywhere," Nathan said firmly, "not if you don't want to." "But what would I do here?" Lucy asked. "How would I support myself?" Nathan took a deep breath. "You could stay with me." He held up a hand when she started to speak, not as a charity case or a responsibility. "As my partner, my wife, if you'd consider it." Lucy's breath caught. "Nate, I know it's too soon," he continued quickly. "I know we've only known each other a short while, but I also know that what I feel for you is real. It doesn't dishonor what I had with Catherine, it honors her memory by proving that she taught me how to love, how to open my heart." Tears spilled down Lucy's cheeks at his words. "I never thought I'd find this," she whispered. "After everything, after running for my life to find you." Nathan wiped away her tears with gentle thumbs. "Is that a yes?" "It's a ask me again in the spring," Lucy said with a watery smile. "I need to be sure this is real for both of us, not just a reaction to our circumstances." Nathan nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I'll ask again in the spring," he promised, "and every spring after that if that's what it takes." He kissed her again, more firmly this time. "I'm a patient man, Lucy Lawson. I tracked you for days through the wilderness. I can wait a few more months for your answer." Lucy laughed softly against his lips. "Not too patient, I hope," she murmured, before kissing him back with all the feelings she'd been holding inside for weeks. As winter deepened, the cabin became their world. Heavy snow made travel to Greenleaf impossible for weeks at a time, but they had prepared well and wanted for nothing. Their days fell into a comfortable pattern: shared chores in the morning, quiet pursuits in the afternoon, and evenings by the fire, often ending with increasingly passionate embraces. Nathan proved true to his word, never pressuring Lucy for more than she was ready to give. Their relationship deepened slowly, built on shared stories, mutual respect, and a growing understanding of each other's strengths and vulnerabilities. By January, Lucy had moved her few possessions into the main bedroom, while Nathan took the small sleeping alcove they'd created by the fire. The arrangement maintained propriety while acknowledging the shift in their relationship. On a particularly cold February night, as a blizzard howled outside, Lucy lay awake listening to the wind and thinking about the future. Spring was approaching faster than she'd imagined possible, and with it, the decision she'd promised to make. A soft knock on the bedroom door frame pulled her from her thoughts. "Lucy, you awake?" "Yes," she replied, sitting up in bed. "Is something wrong?" Nathan pushed aside the curtain, a candle in his hand illuminating his worried expression. "Thought I heard you call out, 'Nightmare.'" Lucy shook her head. "Just thinking, couldn't sleep." Nathan hesitated, then asked, "Want some company, just to talk?" he added quickly. Lucy smiled and shifted over, patting the edge of the bed. "Come sit." Nathan set the candle on the small table by the bed and settled beside her, the mattress dipping under his weight. "What's keeping you awake?" "Spring," Lucy admitted. "It's coming soon." "Ah," Nathan's face grew serious. "Having second thoughts?" "No," Lucy said firmly. "Actually, the opposite." She took his hand. "I don't need until spring, Nate. I know what I want." His eyes widened. "And what's that, you?" Lucy said simply. "This life we've been building. I want to stay, to be your wife, to make this cabin our home." The joy that spread across Nathan's face was like sunrise after the longest night. "You're sure?" "More sure than I've been of anything," Lucy confirmed. "I love you, Nathan Xavier. I think I started falling for you the moment you found me in that forest." Nathan gathered her into his arms, holding her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. "I love you too, Lucy, so much it scares me sometimes." "Why does it scare you?" she asked, pulling back to see his face. "Because I've lost before," he said honestly, "and the thought of losing you—" "You won't lose me," Lucy promised, framing his face with her hands. "I'm stronger than you think, we both are." "Yes," Nathan agreed, turning his head to kiss her palm. "We are." Their wedding took place in early March, in the small church in Greenleaf. The snow had melted enough to make the journey, and though the day was cold, the sun shone brightly as if blessing their union. Hannah had insisted on hosting a small celebration at the tavern afterward, and Miller had closed the store early to attend. Jeremiah stood as Nathan's witness, and to Lucy's surprise, Eleanor Holloway herself had made the journey from Tahlequah to stand with her. "I wouldn't have missed it, Mrs. Holloway told Lucy as they embraced. "When Mr. Xavier wrote to tell me of your engagement, I knew I had to be here." She pressed a small package into Lucy's hands, a wedding gift, something to start your new life together. Inside was a deed to 40 acres of land adjoining Nathan's property, along with enough money to build a proper house and buy livestock. "I can't accept this," Lucy protested. "It's too much." "It's not nearly enough," Mrs. Holloway said firmly. "Consider it compensation for what my family put you through. Please, Lucy, let me do this for you both." In the end, Lucy accepted with tears of gratitude. When she showed Nathan later that evening, he was stunned into rare speechlessness. "This changes everything," he finally said. "We could build a real ranch, raise horses like I've always wanted." "Is that your dream?" Lucy asked, realizing they'd never discussed such possibilities. "Part of it," Nathan replied, pulling her close. "The other part came true today when you became my wife." As spring bloomed across the territory, Nathan and Lucy began building their future together. Construction started on a proper house on their new land, though they agreed to keep the cabin as well a retreat and a reminder of where they'd begun. Nathan taught Lucy to ride her own horse, a gentle mare they'd purchased in Greenleaf, and she took to it with natural grace. Together they explored their expanded property, planning where to place corrals, barns, and gardens. By summer, the house was taking shape, and Nathan had acquired a small herd of horses to breed and train. Lucy planted a vegetable garden that flourished under her care, and she began selling preserves and pies in Greenleaf to contribute to their growing savings. What do you think? Nathan asked one evening as they sat on the porch of the cabin, watching the sunset. Is this the life you imagined when you were surviving on berries in the forest? Lucy laughed, leaning her head against his shoulder. I wasn't imagining much beyond the next meal back then, she admitted. But no, I never dreamed of anything this good. Nathan kissed the top of her head, his arm tightening around her waist. Neither did I. After Catherine and Sarah, I thought that part of my life was over. And now? Lucy asked, looking up at him. Now I'm thinking about the future again, Nathan said, his eyes warm as they met hers. Our future. As autumn painted the forest in familiar shades of red and gold, Lucy stood at the edge of their property, gathering the last of the season's blackberries. Her basket was nearly full, and she popped a plump berry into her mouth, savoring the sweet tart flavor that now held so much meaning for her. A horse's whinny made her look up. Nathan was riding toward her, his face alight with the smile he now wore so often. Successful hunt. Lucy called as he dismounted. Better than that, Nathan replied, taking her free hand. Just got word from town. The papers are approved, the ranch is officially registered. Xavier Horse Farm is real. Lucy set down her basket to throw her arms around his neck. That's wonderful, Nate. He lifted her off her feet in an exuberant embrace. Couldn't have done it without you, he said when he set her down. Any of it. Lucy thought of the frightened young woman she'd been a year ago, fleeing through this same forest, surviving on berries and desperation. She thought of the grieving, solitary man Nathan had been, tracking her for days through the wilderness. We saved each other, she said softly. Found each other when we needed it most. Nathan nodded, understanding in his eyes. He reached into her basket and selected a perfect blackberry, holding it up between them. To new beginnings, he said, offering it to her with a smile, and to finding purpose when you least expect it. Lucy accepted the berry, then pulled his head down for a kiss that tasted of blackberries and promise. Around them, the forest whispered with memories of their beginning, while before them stretched the future they would build together day by day, season by season, year by year. And in the years that followed, as their ranch prospered and their family grew to include 2 sons with their father's hazel eyes and a daughter with her mother's quiet strength, Lucy would sometimes venture alone into the forest to gather blackberries. She would fill her basket slowly, savoring the task and remembering the desperate young woman who had once survived on these same berries. She would remember the sound of a twig snapping, the sight of a tall cowboy in a dark Stetson, and the beginning of a love story written in tracking signs and forest paths. And she would return home, always home, to the man who had found his purpose when he found her, and to the life they had built together from the most unlikely of beginnings. Sometimes, on cool autumn evenings, Nathan would join her by the old cabin they still maintained, and together they would watch the sunset paint the forest in gold. He would take her hand, the gesture as natural as breathing after all their years together, and they would share a smile that needed no words to express the journey that had brought them to this moment, from berries and survival to love and prosperity, from loneliness to family, from loss to the fullness of a life well lived and well loved. And they both knew, with the certainty that comes from weathering life's storms together, that finding each other in that forest had been no accident, but the beginning of the story they were meant to write together, a story that would continue long after they were gone, in the land they had tended, and the children they had raised, and the love they had nurtured, day by day, through all the seasons of their lives.